as a group at this age, when we probably are living in the best time of our life, we don't talk about consequential things about what we do in the future. And why is it that we don't do that?
Professor Virginia Cha, angel investor, chief technology geek, co-founder and CEO of multiple high-tech companies. Now she builds people to build a better world. The Distinguished Senior Fellowship Program she established at the National University of Singapore inspires senior leaders to pursue significance in their next chapter.
So we're not going to talk about finance. We're not going to talk about business. That's no longer material for where you are in life. If you can let that go, then it can be replaced by a sort of bigger sense of purpose of what you want to do next. How do we change the narrative of longevity, which has always been around health, to one where it's around joy? It's great to be old. It's great.
There's a lot of talk about longevity, about health span, lifespan, outliving, best living, healthy aging, positive aging. So much talk it can be confusing. But where is this happening other than in the media? The answer? Singapore. Listeners may be familiar with the concept of blue zones, regions in the world that are identified where people live exceptionally long and exceptionally healthy lives. Parts of Japan, parts of Italy, Costa Rica, Greece, and California. Well, Singapore is now the latest addition to this esteemed list. By 2030, nearly 1/3 of Singaporeans will be over 65, and if you're under 40 living in Singapore today, there's a 50-50 chance you will live until you're 100 in Singapore. But here's the twist. They're not just living longer, they're living better. The country's health span, the years spent in good health, particularly towards the end of your life, is amongst the highest in the world. I wanted to know more, so last week I went to Singapore to find out as much as I could. My guest today is Professor Virginia Cha, an adjunct professor at the National University of Singapore. She has set up a new program at the university exploring all aspects of the 100-year life, inspired by the book of the same name by Andrew Scott and Linda Grattan. I spoke to her about many things, including her former career as an entrepreneur, this program, what it's about, what it's trying to achieve, what are the purpose projects, who are the people that come onto the program, why they come onto the program. We speak about Singapore, its success as a country, its success as a society, the importance of social cohesion. And then she tells us why she feels more alive and more free now at this stage of her life than any other. She also tells me the lives of the men on her program have been changed in a special way. This is a fascinating, a fun, and a very positive conversation. I loved it. I hope you do too.
From our studios in Jones Bay Wharf, Sydney and Singapore, here's Pod O'Sullivan with Don't Let the Old Man In, a podcast from the Wisdom Vault.
Welcome. Let's start here. At the top of your LinkedIn page, which made me really laugh when I read it, you start with these lines. I am old. I used to be an entrepreneur, but you know what people say, those who can do, those who can't teach. Now, I've never heard anyone or seen anyone start a LinkedIn biography page with that kind of phrasing. Tell me, what does that mean to you?
Well, first of all, I don't take myself too seriously. And I don't think anybody should take themselves too seriously. You got to enjoy life. It's not meant to be negative to say I'm old. Actually, the hidden meaning is I'm not afraid of anybody hurting me. I'm old. You can't hurt me. That's the implied saying. Right. In Asia, actually, you're highly respected as you get older. That's to right. Say I'm old actually is a sort of a stripe you earn. So, when I say I'm old, it's actually a badge of honor. Plus, there's a hidden meaning behind it, which is, I'm not afraid of anybody hurting me. Nobody can hurt me now.
I've seen far too much for you. Fair enough. I was really keen to meet you and talk to you about the fellowship program at National University of Singapore, which you are the academic director of, and we'll come to that in a few minutes. Yeah. But I was also very keen to talk to you about Singapore. Singapore is an extraordinary country on many levels in terms of where it's come from, where it's come to. It's often cited for having one of the globe's healthiest, happiest, and long-living populations. And just recently, it's been cited as the sixth blue zone country. Let's start with blue zone. What is blue zone, and why is Singapore a blue zone country?
The blue zone concept was actually started by an influencer and author named Dan Butler. The original list of blue zone countries did not include Singapore, but he recently put Singapore on the map, global world map, as the sixth blue zone in 2023. Generally speaking, the blue zone is an area, a region where the population in that region tends to live a long, healthy life, longevity. And Singapore recently sort of made it on the blue zone. But if you read his article, he also says that Singapore is the engineered blue zone.
Didn't happen naturally.
It didn't happen naturally. I mean, think about it. We import 95% of our food. So we're, this is not the kind of environment where you get natural fish or food. Everything's imported. So how we became the blue zone has a lot to do with very purposeful policies and interventions by the government to ensure that the population has access to good health care, access to clean air and good food, etc. So it is engineered. But I don't think anybody in Singapore minds that it's engineered as long as
good outcome. That's fine.
as long as the outcome. We're very, very, very pragmatic society.
Yeah, and of course, Singapore, you could say as a society, is an engineered society in terms of how long it's been around, and
Yes.
everything has been a very proactive intervention. So that's not surprising
Yes.
that this is either. I read a statistic that for those born in 1960, they expected to live till they were 65. The next generation expect to live till they're 85. And now if you're under 40 in Singapore, it's a 50-50 chance you're going to live till you're 100. So this whole trajectory is just getting
Right.
longer and longer, which is really a contradiction to many parts of the world where actually we're going backwards in terms of longevity. So what's unique about Singapore? What's in the water here?
Well, again, the water is also imported. Okay. So it's very interesting. The average age longevity for female is expected to be 85.6 in 2024, and for males 81.2. And in fact, 28% of the population will be over 65 by 2030. So we're entering a super age society. Health is comprised of three things: the social behavior, the environment. 60% of your health is based on that. 30% of your health is based on genetics, and 10% of the health is based on healthcare. Now, in those factors, 60% is social behavior, environment. That's something Singapore has some control over in terms of having social cohesion in society. And also ensuring that there's, manageable pollution, if any, in the environment. And of course, healthcare is excellent in Singapore. So when you think about it, if 70% of health is in the factor that can be controlled, that's why we're able to make such dramatic leaps in adding to longevity to Singapore. In fact, I have some statistics here about our longevity data. Allow me to consult. In Asia, we have one of the longest longevity numbers. For female, it's expected to be 88. For male, it's 84. And this is a study based on 204 countries. And Japan is also 88 and 82 from female and male. China is 81-75. In contrast, the USA is 81 and 76. But more importantly, it's probably what we call health span, the number of years you are actually healthy while you're alive. Okay, and for Singapore, it's we have a health span for female of 76, versus longevity 88, and 74 for male versus 84 for longevity. And that's actually the highest in Asia, and definitely much higher than USA.
And do you think is that the outcome of the government interventions as a society?
I think the government engineers certain factors, for example, healthcare system, the social cohesion. But I think also as a society, Singapore is very pragmatic and also very family oriented. So I think that helps a lot. So I think what the government can do is to enable it with the right set of policies, but the people inside Singapore also lives harmoniously. You've walked around Singapore, you've interacted with Singaporeans. You can see that the society values harmony and getting along. And if there's any disagreement, which, of course, we all can have disagreement, it's done in such a way that it's not adversarial. And it's not like Singapore is very conservative or, just afraid to speak up. It's not like that at all. It's just that people here don't believe in creating controversy for controversy's sake.
I had a great example of this last night. I was, Uber doesn't exist in Singapore anymore, as you know. So Grab is the alternative.
Right.
And I was getting a car to a dinner to meet my friend at dinner. And the car setup didn't take my credit card, so I had to pay in cash. I didn't have any cash. So the driver said, it's not a problem. Give me your phone number. But I said, I'm leaving in 2 days' time. So, well, give me the phone number of your friend who's in Singapore. I said, why is that? He said, well, he can transfer the money to me. And I said to him, do you trust that'll happen when I leave the car? Because I'm happy to give you, I happen to have British pounds and Australian dollars and US dollars in my wallet. I said, I'm happy to give you the, he said, of course I trust it. This is Singapore.
Yes.
Right? And I went upstairs to meet my friend and I said, this is the story of just what's happened. And my friend said, that is so Singapore.
It's very Singapore.
What happened.
Yes. It's a high trust society. I know we're talking about longevity, but I think it's all interrelated. Singapore is a high trust society, therefore it's a low friction society. You don't have friction, and friction adds stress, right? When all the time you're worried about if somebody gonna, scam you or steal from you, or you're still trying to deal with how to pay somebody, that's friction, that's stress. And Singapore is a very low friction society. And I think even Singaporeans do not appreciate what a low friction society it is.
You're absolutely right. I've been coming here for many, many years and I've always known that. It is very low friction. You talk about a word that I love. You talk about the word thrivvers. And you say that in Singapore, longevity is no longer a question. It's just accepted because everyone can see that. We're living well into your 80s, but we're expected to retire in our 60s. And you're saying, can we avoid the word seniors and talk about the notion of thriving in that third act or that third transition? Tell me more about the word thriving, because when I read about that, what I thought was, this is such a contradiction to the stereotypes of midlife crisis and getting old, etc.
Well, when you think about it, in Singapore, the people who are over 60 now, went through nation building, and not just in Singapore, but also all around Asia. All the economies were building at the time. So it's the first generation, those of us in our 60s now, it's the first generation to actually receive education versus our parents' generation, which is in the 80s and 90s, who many of them have, of course, passed on. But those of us in our 60s are probably the first generation to receive formal education. So we're the best educated old people. So I don't say that word to mean negative, but in a positive way. For this age group, we're the best educated group. So we have knowledge and skills. We have expertise. We have ability to solve problems. We have incredible social network. You live in a friction-free society. It's very easy to have social networks with people. So if we were to say, okay, everybody, you got to retire at 63 or 65, then what's supposed to happen is everybody's supposed to, drink kopi and, or play golf. or just look after grandchildren, and that's that? Or is it that we can put that into good use? And that's the whole philosophy behind this, which is if you can actually be helpful to others, you can actually bring joy to yourself, right? Being helpful to others. And the problem is we don't have such an organized way to do that, right? People leave their workplace, retire as executives, managing director of, say operations. And their entire career, their identity was tied to their profession. All of a sudden they're retired. Okay. Yeah, so periodically they get together with the ex-colleagues for coffee, but that's it. It's not really doing something together.
That's right. It's no contribution.
And you always talk about the past. Remember so-and-so, what project you worked on, etc. It's not about the future together. Okay? And then, so I was thinking, well, that's very odd. Why aren't we future looking as a group at this age when we probably are living in the best time of our life? We don't have to worry about, many of us don't have to worry about money, not that we're wealthy, but we're well taken care of. And we don't have duties, okay? And yet we don't talk about consequential things about what we do in the future. And why is it that we don't do that? And so I thought about this and I said, well, why don't we organize ourselves? And how do we do that? Well, the way I thought about this was that, okay, you need to have like-minded people together. Okay, not everyone wants to, do a project or, give to society. Not everybody wants to do that. Some people want to just drink coffee, play golf. That's fine. Play bowling or whatever, go bowling. So how do you find like-minded people to do this? Well, the best way is to put a program together that advertises learning, lifelong learning. So you attract a certain kind of people
who want to learn.
Yeah, they want to learn. They're curious. They're open-minded. They don't see themselves as being done with life. That's why they still want to learn. Yeah. So you automatically qualify a certain group of like-minded people together. And you put them together in a program and you give them a lot of interesting classes that you can call it random, but there's just a variety of subjects. Yeah. Feed their curiosity, have them go through the program, attending classes together, and then they socialize. And it's incredible what magic can come out of. You give them the social affirmation that, yeah, we should do a project together. And they socialize, build deep friendship. Next thing you know, they're building magic together. It's just wonderful to watch. So I'm building this program at NUS. We call it Distinguished Senior Fellowship Program. It's the first in Asia.
Yes. And
really, really pleased with it. So I wanted to share that with you.
How long did it take you from that idea to get the program up and running?
About a year and a half. And that's considered sonic speed for a university.
I've been involved in universities. That's like a flash of lightning.
That's considered sonic speed in a university. The funny story is the following. So my background is I teach entrepreneurship, right? You mentioned that at the beginning, those who can do, those who can't teach, right? So my background is entrepreneurship and I teach innovation. And so in my heart of heart, I'm still an entrepreneur, okay? So I wanted this program for myself. I wanted to learn random things, right? I was, a year and a half ago, I was 64 or so, and I was like, oh, I want to learn subjects like religion, anthropology, stuff I never had a chance to learn because I ended up studying computer science and then, ended up going to the tech industry and becoming a business executive, et cetera, et cetera. I missed out on the whole subject of humanities. And so now I'm kind of facing sort of the tail end.
For you.
Yeah, tail end of my career. And I'm I'm going to go take some of these classes. I looked around, there's no such thing in Asia. You can't do it. If you want to take those subjects, you have to enroll in a master's degree program. Well, I'm not interested in another degree.
I want to learn.
I want to just learn the subject.
Yeah.
So I looked around and I said, well, I can't find this anywhere. Well, being entrepreneurial, you got to think this way. If I can't find the product, I'm going to make it. So I do what entrepreneurs do. So if I'm going to make this product, where should it be? Of course, at NUS, right, which is where I'm adjunct professor. So I made an appointment with our NUS president, Professor Tang En Chai. And this is a large university with
Very prestigious university.
tens of thousands of lecturers, employees, etc. Right? Who's Virginia Cha, right? So fortunately, he had years ago sat in the audience while I gave some speech and pretended to know what I was saying. Anyway, he was impressed enough to remember my name.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all you need. Okay, you need the boss. I call him the Kahuna.
Right, the big kahuna. He
The
knew
big
your
Kahuna.
name.
Yeah,
Where you
he
go.
remembered my name. So I shot out an email to him and asked if I could have 30 minutes of his time. And he's a very, very kind person, very open-minded. He said, sure, half an hour of my time, come, and he gave me a date, which was, some months later. But I was grateful. I went and sat in his office and on the sofa and just pitched the idea to him. No PowerPoint. Just told him what I thought and, wouldn't it be a great idea? And he was the one who said, oh, yes, we're going into super age, super senior society. This is a great idea. So he arrowed me to work with our NUS faculty called SCALE, okay,
Right.
which is the School of Continual and Lifelong Learning Education, okay. So I found my partner in crime, and that was a year and a half ago, and we cooked this up and launched it just like that in a year and a half, which is unheard of. Unheard of. An entire program from idea to launch, a year and a half.
It would take an entrepreneur to do that. Yeah,
But a lot of ways. I can't say that everybody was along the way were happy with the pace. Let's just say.
So you've had, I think it's 21 fellows come in. Is that correct?
Yes, 21.
And they go through a 13-week program.
Yes.
And you said, I didn't say it, you said they have a random amount of subjects thrown at them.
Yes.
When I looked at it, I was looking at you got history, culture, religion, philosophy, contemporary affairs. Like
Yes.
It's an extraordinary buffet
Yes.
of learning.
Yes. Yes.
And they do a purpose project.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Okay. So the way we organize this, there is some structure to this randomness. Okay. So we structured the program to be one semester. So in NUS, one semester is 13 weeks long. So think of it as 3 months plus a week. Okay. So the way I structured this is the first month are classes. Second month would be field work, and I'll touch upon that later. Third month, more classes. And then the final 13th week is the capstone. Okay. So that's the overall calendar structure. Then within that, what do we do in those days? Well, the first month we call it Explore. So we have the following sets of classes, and each class is 3 hours long. So executive style, 3 hours. So we have the following sets of classes. We have what we call the core module, where what we talk about would be things like theory of change. How do you make an impact? And then for the fellows to form teams and do a purpose project together in the entire 13 weeks. Okay. So we discussed that in the core module, okay? We have a signature module we call Thriving in the 100-Year Life. And that one we use, thinking about the Blue Zone, we use the 3 important factors, which is lifestyle, what you eat, nutrition, etc. Second one would be genetics, your genes. Okay. So we cover things like the science of cancer, the science of chronic diseases.
Professor Andy Tay is
involved. Yes. And then the third would be healthcare economics. How does the healthcare system work? So in the Thriving in 100-Year Life, we cover these aspects under that module. Okay. And so each module runs both in month 1 and month 3 when there are 10 classes. And each class is, 3 hours long. Okay, so there are 10 classes on Mondays to cover core in the morning, Thriving in 100-Year Life in the afternoon, the whole day class. Then on Wednesdays, on month 1 and month 3, we cover what we call electives. The electives would be the whole buffet of history, appreciation of the arts, culture, religion, food anthropology, etc.
This goes back to what you wanted originally for you.
Yes. Random classes. It is somewhat random in that it's just classes that are interesting.
Yeah.
There's no structure in the sense of is there a reason why it's in this order? And the truth is, no, not much. Because hey, it's called exploration.
Yeah.
You're supposed to explore new knowledge.
Adventure.
Yeah. And who am I to suggest that you should take classes in the specific order because it would have this effect? Heck, I don't know. I'm not a humanities expert. I just find these topics interesting. But I tell you, I'll come back to the project later, but I tell you one of the key challenges of running this program that most people don't know unless you're in a university. And I know you're doing a PhD, so you can appreciate what I'm telling you now. Well, professors are sort of on a pedestal in a university. You can't make professors do things. You do know that, right?
I do know that. That's right.
So
you can't even make them return emails sometimes.
well, that's a whole different problem. And this is an unknown program, and not even in their home faculty. So why should they do this? Why should they take a chance?
I'm just going to pause for 1 second. If you've got this far, that means you must be enjoying the show. Thank you for watching. We have a plan to build out a whole lot more shows just like this. And to do so, we need your help. The platform amplifies shows that have higher eyeballs and subscriptions. So to help us attract guests that you will find very interesting, please press like and subscribe. That way we can attract the guests that you want, and we won't let the old man in. Now on with the show.
So I had to pitch internally to all the professors to get them to teach. That was how difficult it was.
What was your win rate?
Oh, actually, not too bad. Not too bad. I find if I get people in front of me, they get charmed, or either that, I just don't give up. Maybe they sense that if they say no to me,
it's never no. It's never going to be no.
If they say no to me, I'll just come to them another way.
Not today. She'll be back tomorrow.
So they figure, okay, I'll just say once, yes to this once, and then she'll go away. So if I manage to get in front of the prof,
you got it.
I get them. Okay.
I bet your career as an entrepreneur taught you that, did it?
I think not giving up is core to being an entrepreneur. Because if you give up too easily, you can't get things done.
Exactly right.
So that's how we put the program together. And I'll talk about the core projects pretty soon. But I have to tell you, the two things surprised me quite a bit. We're almost in the last month now of the program, of the inaugural cohort. The one huge thing that really surprised me, and then I'll talk about the second one, is that the deep friendship that came out of it. I mean, it's amazing to see these 21 fellows interact with each other like children. And the mean age of the group is 62.
Okay.
And the oldest being 82, the youngest being 47. Okay. But to see them interact with each other like children, laughing and genuinely care about each other, and having a very active WhatsApp group, it's just amazing to watch. It really surprised me because if you think about it, if I went out there and recruited people to come to an education program and say, come to this program, NUS, prestigious, and by the way, you'll make great friends. Imagine people at this age is like, I don't need more new friends. I got enough friends.
It's a program, of course, they're paid to be on, right? It's not a free program.
It's not a free program. So they're like, why would I need to make new friends? I got enough friends. I don't even have time with the friends I've got. Yeah. Okay. But really surprised me, and I probably surprised them as well.
Is that down to the purpose project, do you think? Or is it down to the wider content? Or
I think it's a combination. I think one, they are meeting each other in a psychologically safe environment. There's no agenda. They did meet each other because they had work and history, right? They meet each other for the first time. And when we start the program, the core project, we do this, what we call, tell us your origin story. And I make it explicit that not your LinkedIn profile, meaning you don't tell us about, your profession. Just, start from childhood.
Yep.
What made you who you are? And it was just such an amazing experience to have each one get up and be so genuine, so authentic, so open kimono, that immediately opened up a whole new world for everyone. To get to that level of understanding of each other. And then, of course, we did a trip together to Cambodia. They attend classes together. And of course, they divide themselves into different teams doing projects together. And I think the combination of these things together made for deep friendship. I mean, I think you can confirm this with one of the fellows with you. So I think it's that. The second thing that surprised me, and this is to the interesting subject that you do, which is on males in middle age. I have noticed that the male fellows, and we are about 70% males, 30% female. Okay, we have 6 females. Okay, the males in the group, I noticed that they, we've been together for about 2 months now. Compared to when they first joined the program to now, I noticed a distinct difference in their energy.
That's interesting.
It's really noticeable.
How would you describe the energy now?
They walk around more bouncy. When they walk in, they're much more animate. Okay, you know, some of them even, I mean, coincidentally lost weight. One of them joked to me like his wife is wondering, what's this class?
Who's Virginia?
Yeah. So, I mean, so they seem more energetic, more animated. It's just all around seem to be high energy. And I just noticed this with the male cohort, not so much with the female. Not that they're, you know, worse than before or anything.
Yeah,
it's just, it's not a noticeable difference. But for the males, I noticed a big difference.
You know, I'm not surprised to hear you say that from the point of view of this whole podcast, Don't Let the Old Man In, is designed to have conversations with men in midlife in order for them to help generate a new sense of purpose as they're progressing into later stages. Because for men, often work is the purpose,
Yes.
full stop.
Yes.
And
yes.
once that no longer becomes as important, or as the identity is not as wrapped up in that as it might have been in the past, or for some of us, we realize, okay, I've gone as far as I can. I'm not going to go any further. This is it. Then what's my new sense of purpose becomes important. And what I think what you're doing is you're opening up almost like a treasure trove of optionalities.
Yes. Yes.
About become relevant again by contributing in different ways to society.
Yeah, it's actually noticeable. I actually was surprised by that second phenomenon. The first, the deep friendship, and the second is the male cohort seems to be exhibiting a whole different set of behaviors. 2 months after, 2 months into the program, they're much more outgoing in terms of speaking, and they walk with a higher energy. It's just amazing to watch.
That would be exciting for you.
Yeah, I'm still trying to understand the phenomenon. If had I known this, I would have maybe, you know, being a researcher professor, I would have done some research work doing the before and after.
That's right. Yeah.
But I didn't do that. So now it's just observation.
Let's jump to the purpose projects, because that's possibly one of the reasons why you're seeing such a change in energy, possibly.
Yes. Yeah, possibly. So the purpose projects, what I do is I have them sort of propose projects, and then I have them pitch it to each other, and then I make it so that they can, each fellow can be a champion of one project and be a team member of another. So maximum participation is 2 projects, maximum champion is 1. But you don't have to be a champion. You could just be a team member of 2 projects. This way we get maximum impact of collaboration and cross discipline and thinking. So out of this, we have 8 projects already from the 21 fellows. So I'll list some of them. It's quite interesting. 2 projects have social impact. One is on mild cognitive decline or dementia, in looking at how do we bring awareness for this? So one fellow is championing that. Another fellow is looking at the caretakers of children with special needs, autism specifically. So another fellow is looking at, along with several members. We have one project that's very interesting, looking at financial diagnostics for retirement.
Okay.
And the premise being that, yes, we have a lot of banks that will actually sit down with you and do the fill out the form and give you a diagnosis, but it's not the premise being it's not comfortable for people to do that. Whereas they're using tech and using voice input and using an avatar to make you feel very comfortable to speak. And then, of course, then do the financial diagnostic. So we have one project doing that. We have one that's looking at integrating recent immigrants, particularly from mainland China, who are more or less sticking to each other in Singapore, not integrating. Okay. So he's looking into how do we integrate them? How do we get them to see the benefits of integrating into Singapore? Okay, so he's doing that one. We have one project that I love this project. It has to do with how do we change the narrative of longevity, which has always been around health, health span, right, being healthy, to one where it's around joy. So he's trying to change the narrative for that. And it's just wonderful to see. He's one of the gentlemen that I see who actually you can see the visible difference in his whole physical demeanor, how he interacts is really obvious. So he's doing that project. We have one project that is actually, in this cohort, they're wonderful. They want this to last, this kind of program. So they are creating a bursary under NUS. We don't want to call it bursary because it has a meaning of undergraduate. We're going to call it a fellow fund or fellowship, because for the future cohort, when they come up with projects, there needs to be a mechanism to fund these projects. So we're trying to create so one project is doing that, it's creating that mechanism. So it's great. They're taking it on. They're already thinking of longevity of the program. It's wonderful.
What really strikes me is when you think about university systems anywhere in the world, bachelor level degrees, the measurement is getting you into work. Master's level degrees the measurement is advancing your career. Right. What you're doing is creating value for society, is the measurement of this program.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. We think of it as the third transition, right? You think of the old days where the first transition is, learning a specific knowledge set so you can be employed, So think of a T, right, in how you think of education. Then perhaps you go and learn another discipline or further studies. You have the pie, right, with two vertical sticks coming out. Now you're think of Marina Bay Sands with that 3 towers. Yeah. That maybe we should have multiple disciplines and there is a third transition, and that's what we're doing. Although I don't push people to do things for society. That's not why, we set this up. It's not meant to be a social program. Okay. It's meant for the fellows to come in, whatever suits their purpose. If their purpose they want is to go and become a lecturer and they want to have a title called Distinguished Senior Fellow from NUS, which is a prestigious title, so be it. We support you. We enable you. So I don't push for anyone to do charity. It's not the reason why we did this.
But it sounds like the programs that you referred to have a societal impact no matter what.
I think the underlying principle is the same. When you help others, you help yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're doing things that is helpful to other people, it doesn't even have to be at a whole society level. It could just be helpful to your neighbors. If you help others, you help yourself. And And this is very important. So it's working out so far. I'm really pleased at how it's turning out.
What have you enjoyed the most?
What have I enjoyed the most? Watching them come together and putting projects together and genuinely learning and applying the learning to create something of impact. That actually gives me a lot of joy. It really does. The ironic thing, I have to tell you, it's quite sad, is that while I created this program because I wanted a product for myself, I became so busy.
You have the time to go to that.
It's awful. I became so busy with all my obligations because I had to run this program, which meant I had to push all my other classes to be, on another schedule, that I ended up not being able to attend these classes. I am so annoyed.
You have to come back as an attendee.
Yes, I know. So once I get this launched properly, actually my intention is very simple. Eventually I want to sort of have the fellows who've gone through the program to take over running the core module, which is what I do now, so that will free me up so that I can just sit in on the classes, which was what I wanted to do. So it's really annoying that I haven't been able to attend the classes.
Well, that's your fast way to scale, isn't it? And just to get other folks getting involved with you.
Yeah, that's my intention.
Yeah. Speaking of scaling and capital, one of your colleagues, Professor John Wong, he talks about older people as capital in terms of how do we reframe the thinking of capital, be it social, human, or economic. It feels to me like you're kind of redesigning a system here to use education as a leverage for that capital. Is that right? And if it wasn't education, would you redesign something else?
I think for me, it was very simple. If I create a program that has education as its center, we attract a certain kind of people. And if you put this certain kind of people together and give them a psychologically safe environment, and then add to it the social affirmation of doing a project together that's helpful, magic will happen. That's essentially it. I don't want to use big words like human capital. That's probably too noble for me. I just believe that if we can get a group of people who have good intentions, very smart, have resources, and put them together in a social affirmation environment and say, let's do something good together, magic will happen. That's essentially what I think.
And it is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me go to the word magic, if I could. You have a huge career as a tech entrepreneur. You've worked in Singapore, China, the US, done a lot of different things. You got your PhD in your 50s, I believe.
Yes.
Right. So you've done a lot of different things, a lot of interesting things. You bring a lot of energy to the table. I mentioned up front, I looked at your LinkedIn profile before we met. And one of your students wrote on LinkedIn these words. As a student who has learned from you these past months, I can say with certainty, you are more than just cool, you are inspiring. Given what you've just said about bringing people together and magic, how do you think you use your influence to inspire people? Like, what is it that you bring to the table for that?
So here I want to talk about my role models. Okay. And I'm going to go into a little bit on philosophy. Okay. So first, there's a difference between a role model and a hero. Okay. So a role model is people that you meet and you have encountered with, and you've observed their behavior, or you work with them, and then they become your role model. Okay. Heroes are people you might have read about or a movie, etc., and they may have skills that you can never acquire, but they're your hero. Okay. So I think to inspire people, you have to be a role model. So you have to have encounters with them. You can't just be an abstract symbol of something. Okay. So to inspire people, you have to be a role model of whatever this inspiration is, be it always supporting people, building up people, or be it constantly learning. And I think that's what it means to inspire people, is to be the role model. And to be the role model, you have to effect the behavior that inspires others, that actually becomes sort of the pattern of behavior that others want to emulate. That's what it means to
So
be
do
a
you
role
think
model.
that you are becoming a role model in order to get that outcome, or you become a role model because you want to be that person and the side benefit is it's a role model for somebody else?
I don't explicitly want to be a role model for anyone because that's too big a burden, too big a responsibility. I think that philosophically speaking, the way I see how to carry on life and also how to create this program, a lot of it has to do with this. I don't know if you know something about Buddhism, the Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah.
I'm not Buddhist, but I studied religion on my own time. Okay. And there are 3 Chinese characters that represent these thoughts. One is kanpo, which is to see deeply, the real reasons. Okay. 放下, it means to let go. Okay. And the third is 自在, it means to be free. Okay. So these are Buddhist thoughts, philosophy. And how do I embed this into creating this program without, making a big deal out of it, like I gave a speech on it or anything like that. But it's embedded into the design, okay? In that the whole idea of Kangpo is to have people gain the knowledge so they really understand the theory of scientific theory, philosophy theory, all the theories, so they really think through exactly what is the reason behind phenomena. Okay, so yeah, you can go back and say I have these random classes, but it's really to enhance the fellow's ability to see the deeper reasons of phenomenon around them. Okay, the fangxia is this. I didn't mention it before, but in this random list of classes, nothing on business, nothing on finance, and it's actually a deliberate choice.
Right.
Okay, so the fangxia, to let go, is all around letting go of the conventional measures of what is successful. So we're not going to talk about finance. We're not going to talk about business. That's no longer material for where you are in life. Okay. If you can let that go, then it can be replaced by a sort of bigger sense of purpose of what you want to do next. Whereas if you put classes on finance and business,
It blocks that.
you're priming the fellows to think that way. And I don't want to do that. So it's explicitly missing in my random list of classes. So that's the second piece. Okay. The third piece about 自在 is like to be free, to be authentic. Okay. And because the way it's designed to have people share about their childhood, share about who they really are, and to have this comfort, psychological safety zone with everyone. At the minimum, they feel very 自在, very free within the program, and it will extend to them outside of the program because all of a sudden it's a habit now to be authentic. So that actually is the underlying principles behind the design. Now, I've never told anybody this. And in fact, I've made speeches about this program, but I've never talked about this. But since you brought it up, I thought I'd go ahead and mention, there's behind the random design, there's a set of principles that guide me. And those were the principles.
That makes sense. How are you, you said free as one of those 3. Yeah. How are you free now compared to when you were, say, in your 50s or your 40s?
Oh, gosh. First of all, it's kind of nice at this age. I have to say, I love being, I don't mind telling you, 65. I love being 65. You know, I'll tell you something pretty silly. You know, when you're of a younger age, say 40 something, you know, when I hang out with people, I'm very authentic. I mean, I just, you know, I don't believe in pretending or anything. And I like hanging out with young people. So I would hang out with, say, young males of, you know, my former TAs or teacher's assistant. But if you're 40 something, okay, and you're, you know, laughing, joking with a 20 something year old, people start thinking there's something going on, right?
There might be.
Yeah. You know, even though, of course, there's nothing going on, but these people just think that way. But when you're 60 something, you're completely free. Nobody thinks that.
That couldn't possibly be going on.
No, that is, I mean, think of that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
You know, before you might constrain yourself. I can't be going around hugging, you know, young men because you hit a good joke or whatever, because you worry of people think, oh my God, you know, cougar going on here.
But now I can.
Hey, nobody thinks that, you know. There's a gray hair grandma, you know, it's all good. I tell you, so yeah, you get it's great to be old. It's great.
Freedom's a wonderful thing.
So, the older you get, the more free you become, because you're free from what other people, you know, think your agenda is. It's wonderful. Everybody should be at this age.
That's been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciated you making time to come on the show today. I've got one more question for you. Now that you've said to me you're 65, I would have said 45, but there you go. You said 65. What do you hope, or what do you think the 90-year-old version of Professor Virginia Chow will be asking her or of her?
90-year-old version of me asking of me. That's a tough question. Should the Virginia at age 65 be doing less and do more letting go? Because I'm pretty busy. But on the other hand, being so busy gives me joy, a sense of my purpose. So I'm not letting that go. So maybe the 95-year-old version of me would say, you know, maybe 30 years ago, you should have sort of let go of more things. Maybe, who knows?
You look pretty joyful to me.
I'm pretty happy. I'm not letting go of anything. I'm pretty happy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What struck me the most about the interview with Professor Cha wasn't just her innovation in creating Asia's first distinguished senior fellow program, but her philosophy in challenging conventional thinking about aging and retirement. I have 4 key reflections and one simple experiment to try after that conversation. The first reflection is about the language of aging. Her declaration on LinkedIn, her own page, but also in our conversation that says, "I'm old, you can't hurt me," I thought was quite profound. But it also carries profound weight. Research from the Stanford Center of Longevity shows that people who hold a positive view of their age and their aging can add up to 7.5 years to their life. Now that's more than if they have low blood pressure, they have a healthy weight, they regularly exercise, or they don't smoke. So the stories we tell ourselves about our aging literally affect our longevity. By claiming old as an identity rather than, say, a stereotype or even as an insult, I think Professor Cha is actually weaponizing it in her favor. She said at 65, she's free from what other people think her agenda is or should be. Now, how cool is that? She's free. And what I've been thinking about is this. I wonder, how could we start embracing this notion of freedom earlier? Wouldn't we save ourselves many years of anxiety? The second reflection for me is on the blue zone and how Singapore has engineered itself as a blue zone area and indeed challenged the original research. Singapore imports 95% of its food, which goes against the other 5 areas that were originally identified in the blue zones. And it's achieved this remarkable sense of longevity through purposeful policies and interventions. Now, for me, this proves longevity is not just about individual lifestyle, it's about collective society design. The stats that she shared included 60% of health outcomes come from society behavior and the environment, 30% from our genetics, and only 10% from healthcare in Singapore. Singapore, the country, leverages 70% and only the 70% it can control. It can't control genetics. Now, this statistic aligns with research all over the world that shows clinical care intervention, i.e. going to hospital or seeing doctors, only accounts for between 10 and 20% of any health outcome. So for me, the lesson here is we obsess over individual optimization, diet, exercise, supplements, etc. Now, they are important, clearly. But what Professor Cha points out is something much bigger, and that is the social fabric quality, the institutional trustworthiness, and the daily friction levels and how they impact our overall sense of health span, and longevity. Indeed, the story I shared of the Uber driver, now the Grab driver in the case of Singapore, they don't have Uber up there, but the story of how he trusted me to leave the car, go into the building to the restaurant, give his phone number to my friend who at some stage that day or the next day would pay him back, is an example of the social capital that exists in Singapore. It's a norm. The trust enables cooperation at a society level. And high social capital correlates with better health, lower crime, and better economic prosperity. And I came away from Singapore thinking, as a parent, as a neighbor leader, as a community leader, maybe as a politician, we should all be looking to Singapore for signs of or for clues as to how we might help encourage higher levels of social cohesion in our own communities. The third reflection for me, and I must say I'm smiling at the thought of this, but it still hit me when she talked about it, and that is the notion of male energy transformation on her program. One of her most intriguing observations was the men, the male fellows, the men who were partaking in the program, were walking with higher levels of energy, were more animated, some of them were even losing weight. Apparently some of the wives are wondering who she was that their men were hanging out with and looking and sounding so much better. But for me, this connects with other research on midlife and retirement, and for men specifically. I've mentioned the psychologist Terence Real in the past, who has done a lot of work on this notion of men and depression, particularly in retirement. And he describes the notion of covert depression, which manifests as irritability or shutdown rather than just sadness. The Longevity Project out of Harvard found that purpose and engagement predicted longevity far better than someone's personality. For many of us men, whose identity centers on our career, our profession, getting closer to retirement often creates an existential crisis. Professor Cha's program has provided is, I think, a social affirmation for meaningful work. The participants are not engaging in just random learning for learning's sake. They're joining a community that values contribution and curiosity over status and wealth. And maybe they are unleashing potential forgotten energy reserves, which is why she is seeing that uplift in their energy. For me, the last reflection is the notion of the Buddhist philosophy behind the curriculum, the hidden philosophy that she shared with us. Now, she spoke about them in Chinese, which I won't do because I will not do them justice. But the 3 principles in English were seeing deeply, letting go, and be free. Now, for me, this philosophical framework creates conditions for accessing inner wisdom on behalf of the participants of the program. Modern Western identities are often buffered. We're bounded, we're self-contained, we're defined by our achievement, we're defined by our status, we're defined by wealth, we're defined by a lot of things that we do. Whereas the program is inviting a more porous identity, a more open to connection, more open to vulnerability, certainly more open to learning, more open to connecting dots to create new solutions, and of the participants, more open to being transformed. I also thought her idea of excluding business and finance type subjects was subtle but actually quite brilliant, because they're subjects that everyone on this particular program, as in the participants, would naturally go to as their safe to and well understood subjects. And it's often by what we don't teach that creates a space for transformation, forcing comfort with uncertainty. So I love that. I love the whole philosophy, and I love the way she rolled it out. Which leads me to my suggested experiment. The program, in my mind, brings together subjects from humanities, philosophy, religion, art, etc., to cultivate lateral thinking without technology. She's not encouraging people to become an expert, but she's encouraging people to expand their conceptual toolkits to maybe see hidden connections in places they hadn't seen before. During the COVID pandemic, when I worked with lots of different leaders who were leading organizations during times of real ambiguity and indeed complexity, the leaders who had a breadth of experience and who were used to cross-disciplinary type thinking, in my observation, outperformed leaders who were deep specialists. Both of them are leading in complex and uncertain environments. But the leaders who had broadened minds, broadened experiences, etc., were enabled to draw from multiple sources when they were trying to figure out solutions. And I think that's exactly what Professor Cha is trying to do. So the experiment is this, in light of the random learning sprint. Over the course of the next week, the next month, visit an art gallery, visit a museum, visit a bookstore, go and see an art cinema that you wouldn't normally frequent. But go to a random exhibition or watch an unusual film or watch a TED talk on, say, a longevity or health span. But expose yourself to something you normally wouldn't. Why? Just to learn something new. It's as simple as that. So in summary of all of that, I don't believe Professor Cha is saying everyone should return to school. But she does show that life's third act, the decades between when we choose to retire, whenever that is, and when we choose to leave, whenever that is, can radically differ from what we've been told historically. It doesn't need to be decline or boredom or waiting. It can be depth, it can be curiosity, it can be contribution, and it certainly can be connection. But it requires intention. It requires releasing conventional success metrics, embodying what she demonstrates, a willingness to be a beginner, to be vulnerable, to trust that helping others might actually help yourself. So I encourage you to approach this experiment not as a task, but as an invitation to explore what might happen with more authentic connection, what might become possible purely by learning something new because of joy, or to explore something new. Professor Cha showed me that being old is not being done, it's being free. And freedom is where the magic happens. Thanks for listening. Until next time, don't let the old man in.